Welcome back to A Story to Tell from the campus of Dixie State University. I'm Ronnow. Our guest today is LuAnn Lundquist.
That's right.
LuAnn, how are you today?
I'm doing great.
You look great.
Well, thank you. I took a lot of extra time spackling this morning to get ready.
Spackling?
Yes, spackling.
I've never heard of that before.
Oh, you haven't?
No.
That's because you're not a woman.
Oh, well, okay, I'll accept that answer. Tell me a little bit about yourself, where you came from, who you are, and what you do.
All right. I am a Canaryville girl.
Canaryville?
Yes. My parents lived in Canaryville when I was born. And I went, at that time they had a little 2-room schoolhouse. I'm sounding really old now, aren't I? A 2-room schoolhouse.
You must be at least 29.
At least, yeah, that's right. And so I was one of the kids that went to school in a 2-room schoolhouse.
How many total students?
Oh, boy, there weren't very many. I remember they didn't have kindergarten, and first grade there was 2 of us. And so there's first, second, and third grade that Miss Williams taught, and 4th, 5th, and 6th grade that Mr. Olds taught. And it was the last year that they had that school, but I think Miss Williams had even taught all of my older sisters and my mom and dad when they were little. She had been there a long time.
And then what did you do?
My family moved to Las Vegas, and
Las Vegas!
Las Vegas.
How did you get out? What happens in Las Vegas stays in Las Vegas.
I know. Yeah. In fact, my parents moved here when I was a senior in high school, and I said, there is no way I'm moving to a podunk little town like St. George. And so I stayed and finished high school. And then I came back and went to Dixie College.
So you're like a native.
Just about.
What did you do after college?
Well, I went to college to find a husband.
Were you successful?
I was.
Congratulations.
I did all right. I married Kurt Lundquist. He was a student here too. And soon after we got married, moved to Salt Lake so he could finish school. And then we ended up moving to Arizona. We raised our children in Arizona.
Whereabouts?
Started out in Scottsdale, and then we moved to Tempe. And then we were there. He was in construction during the Charlie Keating scandal way back in the late 80s. And everyone that was in construction was moving, having
somewhere
to change.
Else,
And so there's a long story behind it, but we ended up selling everything and moving to the trailer from Hades and went back to school in Flagstaff. And so I finished my education, and he got a master's in physical therapy, and as soon as we graduated, we came back home to St. George. That was 93, so we've been here a long time.
20 years, 30 years?
Mm-hmm, 20 years. Yeah.
23,
boy. Yeah.
22.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what do you do now?
I work I founded and I'm the director for the Alzheimer's and Dementia Society. And that's a private nonprofit that we started here in southern Utah to serve people in southern Utah. We've actually got calls and have helped people throughout the state and in several different states as well, because they have parents that live here in southern Utah. And now we are starting with a lot of the programs that we do. We're going to start filming some of those programs and having them on Southern Utah Live so that our clients can access them. And then those resources will be available to people basically all over the nation if they want to. We have a cognitive trainer. Her name's Laura Aldridge. She volunteers with us, and she's the first one that we're going to use, and we're going to train the cognitive training exercises that she does in our early stage classes, so that our clients, after they are finished with the early stage classes, they can go online and review those and do them at home.
What are some of the problems that an older person faces when they...
Well, you know what? I'm really glad you asked that. It's so important. We tend to think of our seniors today as just being independent. They're the ones that we went to when we were younger, and they had the answers. They were there to help us. They went through the terrible times of World War II and rationing, victory gardens, and before that, the Great Depression. So many of them went through that and learned to get by on nothing. They still are saving their aluminum foil to this very day. But those strong, amazing individuals that taught us so much and built the backbone of what has made our nation successful, now they are struggling, I think, a lot of them with the hardest times of their whole life after they've been through all of that. Because now, so many of them, if you look at the statistics, for example, 85 and older, half of everybody that's 85 and older in that age group will have Alzheimer's disease or some form of dementia. And with it, it just brings so many challenges to them. If you imagine waking up in the morning and not having your mind be able to orient you to where you are, how old you are, what to expect, who the person next to you is, it's a very frightening thing. And then you come down younger in age, and it seems to me that there are more and more people that are in their early 60s that are developing a form of dementia.
Is this increasing today?
It is, and Utah is I think it's number one in prevalence in the whole nation. And it's not because we have more people with Alzheimer's disease and dementia, it's because it's a percentage
Of the population?
that is growing and getting these diseases. And it's not because we're unhealthy or we have high risk factors. It's simply that in Utah we have big families and they've grown older, and so we have a population that is reaching the statistical level that we have a lot more Alzheimer's disease and dementia. And with that comes so many problems. We live in this beautiful retirement area. And so people have come from all over the nation to retire here in southern Utah. And their families aren't here for the most part. And they come here in their late 50s, early 60s, and mid 60s. And then 10 years later, a big percentage of them are starting to see the effects of memory loss. And then it can go into Alzheimer's disease or one of the other dementias. And here they are in this beautiful area with no family resources. And so it's particularly difficult. I think the people that are experiencing these dementias, they all are dealing with a lot of fear, as you can imagine.
Is there any way to project the likelihood of getting Alzheimer's or dementia?
There are some risk factors, and there are some things that help to prevent it, although you can do everything right and still get it. So prevention is kind of a word that they use, but it's not probably the most accurate word. But there are warning signs. Part of the aging process is that our brains that kind of look like a big head of cauliflower, they will actually start to shrink. And that's normal aging. And so with that, we will forget things, and it takes us longer to process some things that we used to be able to do. But I think the risk factors that go with a disease like Alzheimer's disease or dementia is that there might be big personality changes. You might notice that even before memory loss. And another thing is that we all forget where we put our keys or we put our purse.
How did you know that?
I've been
That was
following
bad,
you.
wasn't it?
But we find them. We're able to think back and track in our mind where we were, and then we can usually find what we've lost. But if someone has Alzheimer's disease, that ability to track backwards goes away. Another thing is that speech is a problem. We all have trouble finding words. And especially if we're stressed, if we're dehydrated, if we've not been well, the words are hard to come. And then they'll come later. But with
Is that called a senior moment?
Yes, it is. And then with Alzheimer's disease and dementia, and particularly frontal temporal lobe dementia. The word finding is difficult, and it doesn't come very well. Fortunately, we have fabulous healthcare professionals here, speech pathologists that can work with people that are having word finding problems and help train them to find substitute words quicker in their mind.
How do they do that?
Well, they have their processes, but part of that is there's some games out there that you can do, that you and I can do at home to help with our to help strengthen that language part of the brain. There's a game called Taboo.
Taboo? Mm-hmm. I thought that was a perfume.
I'm from Las Vegas. It could mean a lot of different things.
Uh-oh.
But and then another one called Catchphrase, where and that's one we have at our home, where there's a little mechanism, and you put 4 words in here, and you're trying to get the other participants to guess the word before it falls down, but you can't say the word. So it's using those language centers to be creative and find new substitute words for the word that you're trying to use.
So you can teach an old dog new tricks.
That's right. That's right. I'm hoping that continues.
Tell me about your family.
Oh, I've got a wonderful family. I'm really grateful for that. We could just spend the rest of the time on
That's
that.
fine.
Kurt and my husband is Kurt Lundquist, and he's a physical therapist here. And so our family is really dedicated to seniors, it seems. But he was in that Charlie Keating building mode, when we went back to school. So that's what he studied at Northern Arizona University. And we brought that back here, and he was one of the ones that helped to start Coral Desert. And we have 4 children. Our oldest one lives here. Eric is a graphic artist, and his wife Ashley works in the healthcare system. And we have a son, Jared, who's also a physical therapist that works with my husband at Coral Desert. And I have a daughter that's a business consultant. She owns her own company in Salem, Utah. And our youngest just married.
Business consultant, what is that?
She's been a teacher, and then when she had children, she wanted a job where she could stay home more with her children. And so she developed a business called Business Made Simple with her partner, Melissa. And my daughter's really good at systemizing businesses. So she'll go into a mom and pop business that's struggling, and they're finding they're spending a lot of staff time, and she will help them systemize it so that they could actually franchise it if they wanted to. It's that systemized, and that's what she loves to do. I think she got that from her dad, because I'm not that organized. And then our baby married and moved back to Arizona.
Whereabouts in Arizona?
He lives in Mesa.
Mesa.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't Mesa a suburb of Queen Creek?
I think it is.
We have a daughter that lives in Queen Creek.
Oh, that's a beautiful area.
We're on our way down there for a graduation of a grandson
Oh.
this coming week. So.
From high school?
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's wonderful. That area's grown a lot.
It's really booming down there. It's crazy.
Yeah.
The Valley of the Sun, I think it's called,
Mm-hmm.
Phoenix area.
Yeah.
What do you like to do for fun?
Oh, I love to play with my grandkids. We have 10, and 9 of them are boys. Isn't that amazing? 1 little girl. So we get to spoil her. But we like to...
Don't you spoil the boys?
Oh, yeah. Every chance we get.
How old are they?
Our oldest one, let's see, Hank I think he's turning 11 this month. So he's the oldest, and the youngest just will be turning 2 years old. So we got a good spread. And they're just darling. I just love them. And then we like to ride 4-wheelers and just explore new trails around New Harmony.
So you actually live in New Harmony?
Mm-hmm, we do.
How's that working out for you?
You know, I love it. We've lived for a long time in big cities, and St. George has become a big city. And I kind of like sheep and cattle, and so we like our traffic jams to involve animals rather than cars, so we moved up there.
Do you have sheep and cattle?
Nah, we've got chickens.
Chicken.
Yeah.
Free-range chickens?
Yeah. Yeah. They're really pretty white chickens, and we gather the eggs, and we don't eat our chickens. Can't do that. But it's really fun.
Do you eat chickens you buy at the store?
Uh-huh. I prefer it that way.
The others are members of your family, huh?
Yeah, well, yes. You can't eat something that you've named. It's just sick and wrong.
Do you have them all named?
Mm-hmm.
What are their names?
Well, there's Cacciatore and Cordon Bleu. And
This sounds like food,
yes, it does.
but you don't eat them.
No, we don't.
I was raised on a farm through high school, and then ran away to see the world and wished I was back on the farm.
Do you really? Where was your farm at?
Panaca, Nevada.
Oh, Panaca, Nevada. Yeah, that's a little place still, isn't it? It's growing quite a bit.
Yeah. But it was really small when I was there,
Yeah.
a long time before you were born.
Yeah. I had a friend that lived there. Her name was Lorraine Free. I think she
Lorette, I remember the Frees. I don't know who would her father have been.
Yeah, I don't know, because I knew her from New Harmony. She lived next door to me there.
It's a small, small world.
It is.
Let's get back to Alzheimer's. What are the important things we should know about it?
I think the important thing we should know, my husband's father had Alzheimer's disease, and even though I have a degree in social and behavioral science, it didn't prepare me to care for him. And this was about, let's see, Dad died about 9 years ago, and so...
How old was he when he died?
He was only 73. He got it younger. And it didn't run in his family. We didn't expect that to happen. We don't know what caused it. And that's really, most of Alzheimer's and dementia, it's just a flip of a coin, you know. And in some families, it will be a genetic factor. The young onset is often a genetic factor. But, you know, normally it's just you get it or you don't. It's hard to say. There are risk factors, but highly intelligent people that have taken good care of themselves can get this disease. It just, it's not kind. It's not very predictable yet. But one of the things that I like to promote is care for the caregiver. When I was taking care of my father-in-law, I made an awful lot of mistakes. Back then they used to teach, you know, snap them back into reality. And it ends up that, yeah, that's telling them the absolute truth and you're snapping them back into reality. But what the effect is it actually causes them to be more confused and upset. And so now they teach different methods. So I love to teach people about validation communication.
What does that mean?
That is where you validate the person and strengthen the relationship by addressing the emotions rather than the logic and the reason. Because logic and reason, that's arguing, basically. You know, you and I in our relationships with our families, we've always balanced emotions over here by using logic and reason. But with Alzheimer's disease, this doesn't become an effective tool anymore. And so by validating their emotions and helping them to feel safe and loved and secure, then you use validation to balance things back in so that the emotions that are based often in fear can be softened and their life can be better. Another thing that I think is important is the caregiver that's at home that loves and cares for this person with Alzheimer's disease or dementia often gets the hardest part of their disease. So the person with dementia their mood will be at this level at home, and probably their cognition too. And then the kids will call, or the neighbors will come to visit, and it's something new that actually stimulates the brain. So when they're talking to on the phone or visiting, their cognition will bump up here and their mood will bump up here. And so then when the caregiver is talking to the children and saying, I'm really concerned about your father or your mother, and they'll just look at the caregiver like, I just talked to him on the phone for 10 minutes and everything was fine. You know, why are you doing this? And it's really unfortunate. The caregivers don't get enough credit for what they do. You know, people tell them that they're doing it wrong and that they ought to try this. And in reality, the caregivers are doing a great labor of love. And it's my hope that people will believe them when they say what their challenges are.
Is it better to have a person that's suffering from Alzheimer's with a family member or in a professional setting?
That's a really good question. And it really depends on a lot of different circumstances. So as the disease progresses, so in the early stages, it's so important if they will go out and be involved in activities. If they stay home and they isolate and they're embarrassed to be around people, then they actually go downhill faster. And if they can be around people and enjoy activities that are appropriate for their abilities, then their mood and cognition boost up. They do better, they're happier, their caregivers get a break. That's a perfect scenario. But when they're home isolated, the caregiver ends up being isolated, they both lose their health and their cognition and go downhill. So it just depends if the family's able to access resources so that the caregiver can get respite and the person with dementia can be with other people and be social, it's a great scenario. But if that's not the case, then other options might be better.
And what would those other options be?
We don't have adult daycare here yet. We're working to establish one of those in the future very soon. But there are assisted living centers, there are skilled nursing facilities, and we're really fortunate in our area to have high-class, wonderful places. And so if they need that skilled nursing, then that's available. If they have a tendency to wander, they need to be in an area that's secure, so you'd want to look for that. But if they're not wandering, then they can enjoy another area of an assisted living center, for example.
This program that you're starting, or the not-for-profit operation, is it available in other states, or are you connected with the National Alzheimer's Association or anything like that?
I'm really glad you asked that question. People get us often confused. I used to work for the Alzheimer's Association, and they're a great organization. When I worked for them here, we started quite a few programs.
So you actually worked for them while you were here?
Mm-hmm, yes. And then at one point in time, they found it necessary to close the Southern Utah office.
Why did they do that?
It's money problems. It's hard to be a nonprofit. And so they've adopted the national model, and they do their national resources very well, education and referral. And they have a great website and so forth. Our organization is different. We started here in Southern Utah basically with our savings account. And we had a donated room at Coral Desert for a long time. And since then we've moved. We have a new office, and now I have people employed to help me.
How many people?
I have one full-time and one part-time, and a student that comes and helps me. And then most everything we do is volunteer, because obviously starting a nonprofit in a small area, our funds are really limited. But we utilize volunteers really well. We have a lot of professional volunteers for our early stage program that we do twice a year. We have them. We have doctors and lawyers and social workers, speech pathologists, nutritionists, pharmacists, social workers, nurses. They will all come in and do these wonderful presentations. They volunteer their time away from their clinics. And then we divide into two groups, and we do a caregiver training, and we have professionals help us with that. And then those with memory loss have a cognitive training, and Laura Aldridge volunteers and does that. So we're really able to offer a lot of programs and a lot of services because we have fabulous volunteers.
Do you need money?
Yes.
How much money do you need?
Oh, that's a really good question. We just grew up and started paying rent, so that's been a challenge. I feel like the adult child that's been living at home with mom and dad in the basement, and now they kick me out and I'm on my own. So we have rent to pay. The need has become so great, and we have so many calls that I can't do it all anymore. So I've had to hire people to help me, and so. Yeah, we do need funds, and we're grateful for them. And we're a 501c3, so those funds are usually tax deductible.
Both of my wife's parents suffered from Alzheimer's.
So you know.
And it's quite an interesting situation. Her father was very hardworking and healthy and did the things to live right and to take care of his body. And he still got it.
Yeah.
Great guy. And her mother didn't take care of her body, and she got it, and so you don't know. But we have a minute and 45 seconds left. What's your final word?
My final word is, if you know somebody that's suffering with memory loss and they're afraid, I would encourage them to go to their doctor. There are so many conditions that can be ruled out that are reversible. Get those ruled out, and then if they are dealing with a degenerative disease, to seek some help, and don't try to do the journey alone. It's not good for a caregiver's health and well-being, and it's not good for your loved one.
How could they get in touch with you if they need to?
Our phone number is 435-319-0407, and we are right downtown at 168 North, 100 East in Suite 104.
LuAnn, it's been really nice visiting with you. You've got a great story. Why did you, well, we don't have enough time. Anyway, thanks so much for being with us. Maybe we can talk again sometime.
I appreciate the opportunity.
And I'll check back on you and see if we can find some money for you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
All right. This is Lane Ronnow from the campus of Dixie State University. Thanks for being with us on A Story to Tell.